My name is Walter Blume. I was drafted into the U.S. Army September 15th, 1943, excuse me. Went to Camp Upton for a couple of days and then was sent down to Fort Belvoir, Virginia for basic training, 17 weeks. And then we were shipped overseas and I went to the 541st Engineer Harbor Battalion, which did harbor construction, blasting, and taking out minefields in landing waters. We were trained for Bangalore torpedoes, which we used in the harbor to blast out the entrenchments that the Germans had planted along the beach called pillboxes. We made the invasion. There was some confusion when we got on the beach, finally. Probably the most critical time was getting from the landing crafts down to the little Higgins boats, which were called LCTs, landing craft troops, or LCPs, landing craft personnel. We had nets on the sides of the landing crafts, which were converted boats that could have been freighters, or any kind of smaller vessels that could take 100 or 200 soldiers to the beach and get them loaded onto a landing craft. We were loaded onto the landing craft, and the Navy, who was in charge of maneuvering these craft, had the difficulty of getting them across the sandbars, which were uncharted on the maps that were furnished by the French underground to the invasion forces, and they got stalled on the sandbars and jumped the personnel right off the sandbar into water that could be anywhere from 3 to 5 feet deep. Many of the people couldn't swim, or if they could swim, they couldn't carry the loads that were imparted on their backs. Ammunition, Bangalore torpedoes, explosives, and other equipment that we were forced to have. Many of the men drowned because they couldn't carry the weight. Also, the life jackets, what we called Mae Wests, were inadequate. They didn't hold air. The discharge mechanism on it did not fill them adequately. So there was no support in that area for many people. Fortunately, mine deployed, and I was able to get ashore. Our outfit, by the time we reassembled on the beach, we had lost over 50% of our organization. And the policy at that point, if the organization was more than 50% failed, they were to be absorbed by any other division who could use personnel trained that way. And since I was trained as a combat engineer, I was transferred at that point on D-Day +2, I think it was, I'm not quite sure, to the 315th Engineer Combat Battalion of the 90th Infantry Division. And we were then ordered to start moving inward towards our goal, which was Berlin, and we marched towards a town called St. Mary-Eglise. On the way to St. Mary-Eglise, I learned a lot about the German mentality. We were marching along the road, and we were without water in our canteens, and there was a farmhouse with a well up on a small hill and a gravel driveway. We marched up there. We were one platoon of 30 men, and surrounded the well and started to reach for water with the crank-type well mechanism. And the farmer came running out and spoken in French, "Don't touch the water." The Germans poisoned his well, and we were unable to get water from it, and he couldn't feed his animals. We were in an area in a hedgerow, in one of the open fields, and German mortar fire came over, and we heard it come in. We called incoming mail, and we jumped into the foxholes. But as I was going towards a foxhole, I got hit in the knee with fragments of a shell fragment. I'm not sure whether it was a machine gun bullet or whether it was a strike, because it was machine guns on the other side of the hedgerows. And that was an interesting thing. They'd be on one side of the hedgerow and be the other side, maybe 20 feet apart, and they would throw one of their hand grenades across, which was it looked like a mallet. They weren't the same as our hand grenades, and they would throw them over, and they would bounce, and we'd pick them up and throw them back. By the time we got it back, they would explode. So their ammunition was becoming our ammunition, but they didn't seem to quite understand that we could throw them back faster than they could throw them to us. Maybe it's because all our troops were baseball players. Anyhow, that was one of the things. I got wounded, and I got wounded in the foot first, and by the shell fire. And then I went to a small, there's a medical aid station that I was able to limp towards to see if there was any damage done. There was a hole in my shoe, and they took my shoe off, and they patched it up and sent me back and recorded it, and that was the end of it. But the next day, we encountered the same type of warfare, just one notch above hand-to-hand combat, and that is hand-to-hand grenades. And I got the same thing running for the foxhole. I got hit in the knee, and I collapsed right there, and then I couldn't walk. So I called for a medic, and I don't know, these guys were heroes. I don't know where they came from, but they just appeared like that. You'd snap your fingers, and they were there. And they put me on a stretcher and carried me to a small field hospital. But a great camaraderie built up when you go out on patrol, because you find that you're protecting one another. Everybody's out there to protect their buddy. I went to the hospital. I was in the hospital for 6 months. I got discharged from Fort Devens, Massachusetts, on October 25th, 1945. The trouble is, the wars that we fight now are not political wars anymore. They're religious wars. I think the money that goes into war should be used for housing, used for general welfare. The millions and millions of dollars that we spend in war could take our civilization, and everybody would have some place to live.
My name is Elliot Lazarus. I'm from Great Neck, New York. I joined what they call the inactive reserve. I was 17 at the time. Finally, when I was 18, I was called into the service. I went to a Signal Corps school. I was in the Signal Corps school for about 3 months. And a few officers came around and approached myself and 3 other guys and said, you men have good math aptitude, and we would like to have you join the Air Force, the Army Air Force, as bombardiers. That's a bombardier and a navigator combination. And we're going to send you to school in Des Moines, Iowa, called Drake University. Well, that sounded great to me. And the 3 of us went, and we were at Drake University for about, maybe 5 or 6 months. And suddenly, there was talk about an invasion of northern France. And the first thing I know, I was called out of that program and put into the 100th Infantry Division. In the 100th Infantry Division, I was made a corporal and in charge of their communications. I was a communications man and treated very well with the 100th Infantry Division. I was proud to be part of it. They were good veterans, and they were very well trained. And I was with them for a few more months, and the first thing you know, we were sent overseas. Our first job was to replace the 44th Division. They were in the Vosges Mountain area of France. And they were stymied in that area. And they were pulled out, and we replaced them. Well, when the Germans heard that a new outfit was going to be replacing them, they literally bombed the hell out of us with the 88s, with the Nebelwerfers, with everything. They threw everything at us. I thought, if this was war, man, I'm not going to live 2 days. Well, we were on the slope of a hill and stuck there for the longest time. But one thing I learned to do was dig a deep foxhole. My foxhole was the deepest in the outfit. Not only did I cover the foxhole properly, but I cut logs and covered the foxhole, and then took my shelter half and wove the shelter half through the logs to protect tree bursts from coming in my foxhole. And I had a little guy with me. His name was Dominic Ray. He wasn't a good digger. And I felt sorry for him, so I used to share my foxhole with him. And we were stuck there and often had to retreat. I think I retreated more than I advanced in those days. And we lost a lot of men. It was November of 44. Yeah. November of 44. Finally, we got more personnel, and we went, we were able to crack the Maginot Line. That's where the Germans were. And the Maginot Line was extremely well protected. It was 15 stories below the surface of the earth, and their men were fed ammunition and food through a railway system. They had pillboxes all over the place, and they were just as safe as could be. And this Maginot Line was probably the best portion of the whole line that went from northern France all the way down to the Swiss border. We broke through, and the people were so thrilled that we were able to get into this town of St. Louis de Biche, where the Maginot Line was located, that the citizens of the town of St. Louis de Biche melted their silverware. And see this ring? They made these rings for a number of the guys that penetrated St. Louis de Biche. After St. Louis de Biche, we crossed the Rhine, we crossed the Neckar, and at one point, my battalion commander was a tough guy. His name was McMillan. Said, Lazarus, we can't find the enemy. They're retreating so fast. I want you to take a Jeep and 2 other guys and drive and see if you can find them. We went into this little town, and this town had the surrender flags up. That they were white sheets, no more Nazi flags. And the burgomaster of the town came out to us and said, there's German troops in the wooded area on the outskirts of town. We just want to warn you. We are giving up. They are not. So with us, we had 3 men. We dug in positions and fired our rifles in the general direction of where the enemy was supposed to be. It wasn't long before 1, 2, 3, 12 of them came out. Hands on the head, no helmet, just like this, and surrendered. We got all the information that we wanted from them. And our troops were able to go through. Later on one of the lead tanks, one of the infantrymen went through this town that was surrendered and was shot. A bullet went right through his helmet into his head. He died immediately. McCrum ordered the tanks to stop, face the buildings where the sniper fire probably came from, and told the people to evacuate the building in 8 minutes. And when they evacuate, we're going to destroy the buildings and get the sniper. They evacuated the buildings, and we blasted the buildings. We demolished them. We got the sniper. We caught him. He was dead. 3 days later, the war was ended. I think when it comes to man is the coolest of all animals. He kills his own. We can't settle anything unless we have a war. It'd be nice if we could settle things without a war.